out there are UUs. Hey, UUs! You know, I have to say that the Unitarian-Universalist Service Committee and the American Friends Service Committee have been two very supportive organizations to this movement. If you're not a UU, please join us. We don't proselytize, though. Hey, listen, I'm really proud today to have Charlie Clements here with us. Charlie Clements is the president and CEO of the Unitarian-Universalist Service Committee.
Yo,
Charlie was an Air Force pilot and during the Vietnam War, and he refused to fly missions into Cambodia when they started the invasion of Cambodia. He was summarily court-martialed and released from the service. They gave him a 10% disability from the service. So Charlie likes to tell everyone that he's the only one that he knows that has certifiably from the United States government is 90% sane. So he's a renowned international human rights activist, and he did a lot of work in Central America as well. Can we have a warm welcome for Charlie Clements? I'm honored to be on this platform this morning. Thank you. I'd like to spend a few minutes I have with you talking about who we're sending to Iraq and why. Last year, the Army announced it was upping re-enlistment bonuses to as much as $40,000. Last night, I found an online advertisement from a U.S. Army recruiter offering $20,000 enlistment bonuses called a quick ship. To qualify, you have to be ready to enlist next month. The advertisement says in bold letters, "Jump into life." We read last week that insufficient numbers of black Americans are enlisting, so the Army is going to re-examine its recruiting pitches. It's the second time. About a year ago, the Army changed its enlistment spin for mothers and grandmothers of potential black recruits because they were the critical factor in successful recruitment in black neighborhoods. And the Army not only doubled its number of recruiters, but it's increased the financial incentives that they get for each recruit, and it's constantly refining their pitches. We aren't getting enough volunteers, so the Army has waived the requirements that recruits have a high school diploma or GED. We're not getting enough volunteers, so the Army has waived requirements about criminal records. And now 1 in 10 Army recruits has a moral waiver because they have a criminal record. Prior drug or alcohol abuse is another recently granted waiver. And now the Army is now granting waivers for medical problems that would have kept a recruit for military service in other times. Who are we as a nation that we allow these desperate young men and women to bargain away their lives for a chance of college, for a few $1,000 bucks, for a fling before they go off to war, or a chance for citizenship? The Conscription Act of 1863, signed into law by President Lincoln, allowed wealthy Americans the right to buy their way out of service for $300. Is that what is happening today with our tax dollars? Is the reason we don't have to worry about our sons and daughters going to serve is because the Army is offering $20,000 so others will serve in their place? You may have read about the young immigrant who enlisted in the Army and was killed in Iraq. It had been his dream to become a U.S. citizen. In 2004, George Bush signed the changes into law, making it easier for military personnel to gain citizenship. It's one reason there are 60,000 immigrants serving in the U.S. military today. Doesn't this tell us something about this war? If the sons of hawks like Mitt Romney won't serve in the military because, like Dick Cheney in the Vietnam era, they have other priorities, then the strategy boils down to attract whomever we can get by lowering our physical standards, by lowering our mental standards, by lowering our moral standards, by lowering immigration hurdles, by offering desperate young Americans huge amounts of money for a quick ship bonus. But we, of course, will not be able to see their coffins when they are quick ships back to the U.S. We're not allowed to see those images because those images might make the job of military recruiters more difficult. There's something rotten today, and it's not in Denmark, It's in this war the U.S. is waging in Iraq. Military service should not be about cheap tricks and deceptions by military recruiters to lure the unsuspecting and unqualified into service. How many of our brave men and women serving their third or fourth tour of duty in Iraq with a Guard or Reserve unit understood that's what they were signing up for? Ask Camilo Mejia that question. When he tried to leave the Army after his 3-year enlistment was up, he was told to read the small print, which called for another 5 years of reserve duty. A month before that was up, he was shipped to Iraq. Iraq Vets Against the War is the fastest growing veterans organization in the United States. On September 17th, they're launching a national truth and recruiting campaign. There's something rotten in the air when our men and women who have risked their lives for this country have to launch a campaign to demand recruiters to tell the truth to those who would follow in their footsteps. Let us not make the mistake that was made by many of those who opposed the war in the Vietnam era. Let us declare loudly and clearly that service in the U.S. military should be about pride and honor and courage. We do not denigrate anyone who serves honorably in the U.S. military. However, when our Commander-in-Chief leads us into a war based on deception and lies, when our Commander-in-Chief ignores the reports that his own intelligence apparatus about the realities of that war, when our Commander-in-Chief continues to send brave men and women into a war that will not be won by military means, then we must protect the military from its own Commander-in-Chief. I will leave it to others to speak about the Iraqis who are suffering and dying today, because one of the factors fueling the war is the very presence of the U.S. military. One way you can help out is to seek a veteran or an active duty soldier and invite her or him into your church, into your synagogue, or school, or community, or gathering to hear their story. Thank them for their service to the country. Honor them by listening to their story. They are there, in your own community, waiting to be heard. They need to be heard by the young men and women being cajoled and coaxed today by military recruiters. Many organizations can help you with this. We'll connect you to a veteran for peace, an Iraqi veteran against the war, a member of Appeal for Redress, a spokesman for military families Speak Out. Your call may save a life that could otherwise be bargained away for $20,000. Thank you. Charlie Clements, USA! Woo! Thank you, Charlie.